1 minute.
The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio.
He's going to call back in shortly. I'll text you when he's on.
Okay.
The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 30 seconds. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 15 seconds. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 5 seconds.
He's not just a conservative voice at CNN. He's the last man standing, authority to live this long, delivering the fiery truth, surrounded, outnumbered, still undefeated. Fighting for free speech, Western civilization, and delivering common sense for the American people. Ladies and gentlemen, here's Scott Jennings.
Running on fumes here on the Scott Jennings Show on Wednesday, November the 19th. My book came out yesterday, and I have done nothing but talk nonstop. I've been on a book tour, a media tour. I've done radio interviews, TV interviews. I made a big speech last night. I've got another one tonight here in New York City, and I just want to start the show today by thanking every single one of you who has bought a copy of my book called A Revolution of Common Sense. I was looking at one of the Amazon category rankings today, and we were number one in the rankings. And so I just, I have a lot of grateful feelings in my heart for everybody out there who's getting on board with the Revolution of Common Sense. I want to thank the president and his team again for their cooperation. It was great to see the president on Monday and get a copy of my book signed by him, and I signed one for him. So really a whirlwind couple of days for me here as we're getting started with a Revolution of Common Sense. Go to the bookstore. Go over to where they have the books about politics. You're going to see a picture of Donald Trump walking out of the White House and my name on the bottom, A Revolution of Common Sense, how Donald Trump stormed Washington and fought for Western civilization. So that is what is going on in my world right now. By the way, and as you know, the Scott Jennings Show is sponsored by Ease Total Health. That's EASE, Ease Total Health. Wants you to know that health insurance is broken, and Ease fixes it with no deductibles, no red tape, and real benefits from day one. So if you want to learn about our friends at Ease, go to easeforeveryone.com/Scott. It's EASE, easeforeveryone.com/Scott. It's quite an innovative company. And if you're not happy with your health insurance, and by the way, who is? I mean, honestly, isn't that what we've learned, is that nobody's really happy with the healthcare really in this country. But Ease may have a solution for you. They got an amazing website, and they can go over all the benefits. But it's easeforeveryone.com/Scott. It's the common sense for the American people. Scott Jennings here on the Salem Radio Network. A great show lined up today. We are expecting to call into the show here shortly U.S. Senator Bill Cassidy of Louisiana. We've been talking a lot about health care, and I wanted to give Senator Cassidy a chance to come on because he's probably the number one expert on health care in the U.S. Senate, doctor from Louisiana. So we'll have him coming in just a minute. And then at 33 minutes past the hour today, we also have a new guest, I think a first-timer here on the Scott Jennings Show. Her name is Jen Pellegrino, and you might know Jen. She was a primetime anchor and a White House correspondent for Newsmax and also One America News. She now is with the America First Policy Institute, who, by the way, I am speaking at their gala Friday night at Mar-a-Lago in Florida. But anyway, Jen, through the America First Policy Institute, is launching a project called the Defend Forgotten America Project. Defend Forgotten America. And what they're trying to do is ensure that the voices of Americans in forgotten communities are heard loud and clear inside the Beltway. I guess that's really the hallmark of Donald Trump's tenure in Washington. I think I've said this many times in my speeches. I think he gives millions of people the feeling that he speaks for them in the way that they would speak if anybody ever handed them a microphone. Well, I think this project called Defend Forgotten America that Jen Pellegrino is going to come by and talk to us about is really kind of an amplification or an extension of that feeling that President Trump has given all sorts of people. As I said, we're talking healthcare today. We're waiting on Senator Cassidy to call in. A little bit of breaking news today. And this is a direct quote. A senior White House official told Politico this morning that they believe that a peace plan or some agreement to talking about a peace plan maybe between Ukraine and Russia could be imminent. I'll just read you what Politico said this morning. This was the breaking news. The mood inside the White House is bullish, and it seems the plan will be presented to Zelensky as a fait accompli. That's not English, by the way. That means I guess that means like this is it, take it or leave it. What we're going to present to Ukraine is reasonable, the senior White House official told Politico. The Trump administration thinks Zelensky, under pressure both on the battlefield and on the home front, due to a burgeoning corruption scandal in his government there, which, by the way, is a real thing, they think he's going to have to accept this deal. And as for the rest of Europe, they tell Politico, but the White House tells Politico, we don't really care about the Europeans. It's about Ukraine accepting. So I guess the breaking news out of Washington is that the White House is on the brink of unveiling a major new peace deal with Russia to end its war with Ukraine. Boy, wouldn't it be something if right here before the end of the year, before Christmas, President Trump and this administration were able to somehow bring the killing to an end over there. It's so complex. And, the president has had extremely good vibes in these other conflicts that he has solved. The Middle East piece where he brought the hostages home, that was extremely complex, but he got it done. This Russia-Ukraine situation is so complex, and you're dealing with Putin, who, by the way, is not a rational actor. He's a thug. He's a murderer. He's a killer. He is the aggressor here. And you're dealing with Ukraine and Zelensky, who, by the way, has an ego. They do have a corruption situation going on over there in Ukraine. He's got all kinds of stuff going on in his country, but they are under attack. They were the victims in this war. And so how Trump ultimately unravels this and what this peace plan looks like, if it were to come to pass by the end of the week, my goodness, that would be just a huge feather in the president's cap, and it would be good for the world. And again, it would show what a strong American president is able to get done. On the line with me now, United States Senator Bill Cassidy from the great state of Louisiana. Senator Cassidy, I want to welcome you into the Scott Jennings Show. I'm going to be honest with you. We are getting close to the end of this segment, and we're up against a commercial break. So here's what I'm going to do. I just want to ask you your quick reaction to the news that the president may be on the brink of a deal between Ukraine and Russia. How's that strike you today?
That strikes me as one more example of the president being able to do things in foreign policy. And if he does that, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, it really will be. And, this has been going on in the background since Putin came to Alaska, and then it felt like things were falling apart. And it felt like this was kind of a dormant issue, but it's obvious the White House has been working feverishly in the background here to keep the peace fires burning. And it sounds like maybe they have. And so, I'm going to pray for peace in Ukraine. We've got a lot of interest in bringing more peace to Europe. And I know that that's something you strongly support. What are you hearing up in the Senate today about the Epstein vote? It was really a quick thing last night. Obviously just a straightaway approved by the Senate. Were you glad it went down that way?
Scott, the president made it clear that he wanted a release of the records, and I think that's actually wise. The American people just want to know. The president's not going to be implicated, and so just get it out there. And if something the American people wanted to see, the president got that. He advocated for release. I think it was the right vote.
Are you worried at all about the precedent this sets, though, where we're just taking investigations and boxes of files with all kinds of names in it and dumping it out into the public? Is this going to be the new norm when big, high-profile things happen? We're just going to dump everything, even if it implicates people who did nothing wrong?
Well, I don't know that, but you can look at people really wanted to see the files related to JFK assassination. And so I think it's like really high profile. It isn't like, something that the grand jury in Washington, D.C. indicted somebody. No, they really want to see that which has national implications in terms of the character or the consequences of the action. And so it's actually this meets that criteria.
All right, that's Senator Bill Cassidy from Louisiana. We're going to keep you through the break. When we come back, we're talking health care because you're the big expert in the Senate on health care. We want to ask you about your new health care idea. We'll do that on the other side of this break. A quick word from our friends at Pure Talk, which is my wireless company. You know that. I've never seen anything like this before. Here's the deal. Unlimited talk, unlimited text, unlimited data with a 30 gig hotspot, $29.95 a month. For life. You sign up now, you get all the unlimiteds for $29.95 a month for life. It is their top tier plan. It would normally cost you $65, but now through December the 7th, $29.95, unlimited talk, unlimited text, unlimited data on the crazy fast 5G network. It is the best offer they have. It is extremely short-lived. Make the switch today. Dial pound 250 and say Scott Jennings, and you'll get the best unlimited plan, $29.95 a month for life. More with Bill Cassidy of Louisiana when we come back. It's Scott Jennings on the Salem Radio Network.
The voice of reason, common sense for the American people. This is the Scott Jennings Show.
The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 4 minutes.
All I want is a remedy for all of the things that me. Ooh, I will take a look.
The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 3 minutes and 30 seconds.
Baby, why you dye your hair? Why you always keep with your mother's bed?
The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network returns from break in 3 minutes.
Tell me, did the other children's going on you? If I come on like a dream, ooh, will you let me show you what I mean? Will you let me come?
The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 2 minutes and 30 seconds.
All I want is a remedy for all of the things that we need. I can totally take up to please
The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 2 minutes. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 1 minute and 30 seconds.
I need a remedy, yeah. For what is enemy, you see? I need a remedy for what is enemy. I need a remedy, yeah, for what's enemy. If I only had a remedy,
The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return in 1 minute. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 45 seconds. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 30 seconds. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 15 seconds. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 5 seconds.
You've heard the narratives. Now get the truth. It's the Scott Jennings Show.
U.S. Senator Bill Cassidy from Louisiana is our special guest today. Senator Cassidy is the chairman of the Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee and is recognized as one of the foremost experts on health care policy in the Republican Party. Now, the Republicans got to clean up this mess, I guess, that Democrats have left the country with Obamacare and this subsidy issue. Senator Cassidy, you have a proposal to shift these Obamacare premium subsidy payments directly into patients' health savings accounts instead of just forking this over to the insurance companies. Tell us about the plan and why it's one of the things that we got to do to get out of this mess.
First, Scott, thanks for your book, A Revolution in Common Sense.
Thank you.
Let me just thank you for that.
Yes, sir. Thank you for
Now,
that.
let me tell you what common sense is. Yeah, we got $23 billion that would go to insurance companies to subsidize premiums for Americans. Of that $23 billion, 20% would go to the insurance company for profit and overhead. That's written into the Obamacare law. That's what they can charge, 15 or 20%. And why don't we give 100% to the patient? 100% where they can actually spend it on the health care that they choose. So instead of the insurance company telling you what you can spend it on, you can spend it on that which you choose. And by the way, the insurance company typically doesn't give you the permission to spend it on eyeglasses or dental work. And if you have a health savings account, you can spend it on eyeglasses and dental work. So it's common sense, man. If you're writing a book, Scott, about a revolution in common sense, this would be a revolution in common sense in terms of how we fund healthcare.
Okay, so the bill text is coming soon, and have you spoken to the leadership? How quickly can or should the Republicans move on this and other ideas to clean up the Democrat healthcare mess here?
Well, so the Democrats have been told they'll get a vote on their healthcare bill like December the 12th. So what we're proposing is kind of let us come up with something that Democrats and Republicans can agree to, because we can't pass it without some Democratic support. That we will get a bill that maybe we can get 60 votes for that can, again, give 100% of the money to the patients as opposed to a portion of it being taken by insurance companies for profit and overhead. Let's give it to the patient. Now, if we can get Democrats to agree just enough with Republicans to do this, then we're doing something really positive. We're doing something which is total common sense.
Have you talked to some of your Democratic colleagues? Do you believe you have secured some support for this on the Democratic side already?
I certainly have people who are interested, very interested. But in fairness, you've got to learn more about it. And they have questions which we have to answer. By the way, that's true of my Republican colleagues too. And so our challenge over the next couple of weeks is to do all that in order to meet those questions and get enough people on board. That's what we're working at.
And can this be done by the end of the year? I mean, the subsidies, I guess, this issue comes to a head at the end of the year. Is it necessary for this to be done by December the 31st?
Well, you want it to be in effect for January the 1st, 2026, to benefit our fellow Americans who are on those exchanges. By the way, those premiums are going up no matter what we do with this, somewhat. Because, for example, if you look at where in the commercial market, we're only talking about Obamacare, but if you look in the employer-sponsored insurance market, those premiums are going up 20%. That's because healthcare costs have been out of control, and Obamacare did not control it. But in terms of getting it ready for next year, I think we can. In the Tax Cut for Working Families bill, we actually set up a legal mechanism for these health savings accounts to be connected to one of the Obamacare plans called a bronze plan. So we've already got the legal framework. It's just a question of figuring out how to fund it. And the money doesn't have to go in January the 1st. The money could be in by March 1st, and then someone can save their receipts and they can submit it for reimbursement. People do that all the time. So you go get a drug, and the drug, your copay is $50. Just save your copay receipt and you submit it, and then you'll get reimbursed. And so I think we can accomplish this, knowing that it's not. We want to have it for the people in their plan year next year, but there's a little bit of forgiveness, if you will, if things aren't actually allocated till after the first of the year.
Senator Bill Cassidy from the great state of Louisiana, the Republican healthcare policy guru's got a new plan. We're going to bypass the insurance companies and give the money directly to people and put it in health savings accounts. It sounds like, Senator, this is going to be a top priority for the Republicans in December. We wish you the best, and we wish you come back to the show when this starts rolling in December, because I think it's one of the top issues the Republicans have to tackle in the new year. We're going to take a break, but when we come back, we have Jen Pellegrino coming by. She's got a new thing to tell us about. The Defend Forgotten America tour fits in with the Trump agenda, I think. It's common sense for the American people. This is Scott Jennings, and you are on the Salem Radio Network.
If the leftists haven't had enough yet, there's more. This is the Scott Jennings Show.
The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 5 minutes.
Run down. I've been lied to, and I don't know why. Let that mean woman make me a fool. She took all my money.
The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network returns from break in 4 minutes and 30 seconds.
Now she's with one of my good time buddies. They're drinking in some crosstown bar. Sometimes I feel like I've been tied to the whipping post.
The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 4 minutes.
I feel like I'm dying.
The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network returns from break in 3 minutes and 30 seconds.
My friends tell me that I've been such a fool.
The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network returns from break in 3 minutes.
Oh, for loving you. Drown myself in sorrow as I look at what you've done. But nothing seems to change. The bad times stay the same, and I can't run. Sometimes I feel.
The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 2 minutes and 30 seconds.
To the whipping post. Good Lord, I feel like I'm dying.
The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 2 minutes. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 1 minute and 30 seconds. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return in 1 minute.
Sometimes I feel. Sometimes I feel.
The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 45 seconds. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 30 seconds.
Hey, Sean, we're going to get that DFA clip 1 and DFA clip 2 prepared. We'll probably start with one.
The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 15 seconds. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 5 seconds.
The fastest growing show on syndicated radio. Welcome aboard. This is the Scott Jennings Show.
Scott Jennings here on the Salem Radio Network, celebrating the launch of my book, A Revolution of Common Sense, in bookstores right now. I hope you'll go pick it up. And I want to thank Senator Bill Cassidy from Louisiana for stopping by. We were just talking health care, and I have a message for you from our friends at Americans for a Balanced Budget about this very topic. Here's what they say. If Democrats take control of Congress next year, they won't just block the Trump agenda. They'll try to undo it every single day. They'll pack the courts. They'll raise taxes. They'll gut border security. Every far left policy imaginable, they'll go after it. Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer won't rest until they've reversed all the president's victories. And so to stop them, Republicans have to make voters understand they're delivering a better deal for their wallets. That's why Americans for a Balanced Budget is calling on Congress to prevent a massive healthcare tax increase. That's what we were just talking about in our previous segment, these subsidies that go to these Obamacare plans that is set to hammer millions of hardworking Americans with higher costs. Congress must come up with a plan that keeps these premiums affordable for working families who buy their own coverage. Open enrollment is underway. The sticker shock is real. Premiums are doubling for a lot of people. There's time to act, but Congress must move now. Cassidy said it sounds like they are going to. If they don't, it will be a gift to the Democrats, and they'll use it to take back power and hurt the president. You know, Republicans won in 24 by standing with working Americans turning their backs on working Americans would be a political disaster in 26. If you want to hear about Americans for a Balanced Budget and what they think about this, go to this website, StopHealthCostHikes.com. StopHealthCostHikes.com, and you can read about it and tell Congress to do something about affordable health care coverage before it is too late. Common sense for the American people. Scott Jennings is here on the Salem Radio Network. Next up, we have Jen Pellegrino. Jen's a newcomer to the show, and she has a new group called Defend Forgotten America. Hollywood Sean, let's play the clip, and then we'll get to Jen. Here's a new group, Defend Forgotten America.
DC elites continually drown out and denigrate the real people who built this country. That's why I'm launching Defend Forgotten America, to make sure real Americans' voices are heard. We're elevating leaders who know their communities. We'll fight to get DC bureaucrats off the backs of healthcare workers, farmers, manufacturers, and small business owners. We believe DC health policies should reflect community needs and realities for those in small urban America. We're standing for law and order, energy independence, and the right of every family to live free and prosper.
That's Jen Pellegrino. Welcome to the Scott Jennings Show. Jen, by the way, here's how you know Jen. She was a news anchor. Jen, tell me about your media pedigree. You were around on the TV for a while. That's how our folks probably know you. You were a news anchor for Newsmax, right?
That's correct, Scott. And thanks so much for having me on. Congratulations as well on your new book. So exciting. Common sense is something that we've so desperately needed and lost over the previous administration, but we're back at it now under President Trump. But yes, as a news anchor prior to being a spokesperson for the America First Policy Institute. So I was out there every night in prime time talking about a lot of the issues that Americans were facing under the last administration. And prior to that, I was a White House correspondent. So I was in the briefing room with President Trump during his last administration. I was on the campaign trail meeting everyday Americans. So it's been an exciting ride over the last decade or so that I've been in Washington, and I'm excited right now for this new venture.
Now, Jen, you and I have a little bit of a shared experience. We both come from what I call flyover country, small town, rural America. We both know what's happened to these communities over the last several years, and we both know why so many of those people in those communities who had been Democrats turned to Donald Trump. He was giving them a voice against a system that they felt like had ignored them, that was crushing them. You know, the elites had just forgotten about small town rural America. Is that why you're launching this Defend Forgotten America project? Is your lived experience from small town America, is that sort of the driving energy behind it inside of Jen Pellegrino?
Yeah, you nailed it, Scott. You know, I grew up, like you said, in upstate New York. And when I say upstate, I mean where it snows from October through May, basically, where there's a lot of dairy farms. I would say more cows than people. Very rural part of the state, about 6 hours from New York City. So it feels a world away from that, and certainly a world away from Washington. And, you know, having spent time as well out on the campaign trail, going to a number of political rallies, meeting with people who would drive hours from their small towns to be at an event, to see President Trump, to tell me about the issues that were concerning them. I think about them. I think about the people I grew up with. I think about my family, growing up in a middle-class family, how hard they worked to make ends meet, and how you never saw these politicians come to our town, come to our county even. It was a very rare event if it ever happened. And so, you know, these really were the forgotten Americans. And as President Trump always said, they were the silent majority. And you saw them come out in 2016. You saw them come out in 2024. Their voices are powerful. They need to be heard. And President Trump is doing an incredible job of that right now. And we're so thrilled with the work that he's doing. But my concern, Scott, is, you know, we want that to continue on. And there's certainly still more work to do with this administration. I know they have a lot ahead, but we want to make sure that this is something that continues beyond the current administration, to where these voices are not the forgotten Americans anymore, where they speak louder, and certainly where their voices are heard here in the DC swamp.
All right, the topic du jour here on the Scott Jennings Show is healthcare. We just had Senator Bill Cassidy from Louisiana on talking about his proposal to stop paying the insurance companies these subsidies that are going to run out at the end of the year. And regularly, I talk about ERISA plans here on the Scott Jennings Show. I think that's a fabulous idea. From your perspective, and I think a lot of people in small town America are about to deal with this, what should Republicans be doing on the healthcare issue? How are you reacting to some of these Republican proposals to try to alleviate the pain that's been caused by Obamacare on our national healthcare system?
Yeah, our view at Defend Forgotten America, Scott, is that we need to go back to the states, to these communities, and listen to the local people, the local leaders, and the people that live there, and the issues that they're dealing with. Because I think, sometimes there's a disconnect in the conversation that's happening locally, the concerns that people have, versus, what's going on in this DC bubble, where it's a completely different view, and both sides are talking, but not really hearing each other. And so that's kind of our focus right now. We look at rural hospitals and so many of them that have closed over the years, that are struggling to stay open, that are dealing with the skyrocketing cost of treatments, and certainly people unable to afford their health care. We want to make sure that we get that to a better place. So I think a lot of it right now, and coming from somebody with a background in communication, it's about elevating that communication. So we're going to be going back into these communities and elevating the voices of these local officials, these local leaders, to bring that back to DC and say, this is what we should be talking about.
So you're going to serve kind of as a bit of a sponge or a repository for what you're hearing from small town America, and then communicate that back to people on Capitol Hill and back to the administration. Is that right?
That's exactly right. Listen, I've like I said, I've spent a little over a decade here in Washington, but I'm going to be spending a lot of time on the road, going to states like Texas, going to states like Florida, and beyond, Louisiana, you name it, meeting with officials and bringing their messages back to Washington. Because in my conversations with people in the healthcare space, is that there's some alignment, but there's a lot that's not getting through here in DC, and I think we need to make sure that those voices are heard, because it's been an issue going on for a long time now, and so we'll be out there elevating that.
So one of the things we've been talking about this year, a big chunk of the debate this year was over Medicaid, and there was, I think, generational welfare reform on Medicaid in the big, beautiful bill. Can you talk to me about your views on how illegal immigration is driving up the costs in these safety net programs, and that it's actually preventing Americans who need help from these programs from actually getting it? Is part of your mission here to engage in safety net program reform and make sure that it's working for actual Americans and not illegal aliens?
That will definitely be a part of the conversation. I mean, you look at I think well over at least now 1.2 million of these illegal aliens that are removed from Medicaid, thanks to President Trump and the work that he's done. But there's still more work to do. I mean, there's been billions of dollars spent in servicing these patients, and that's something that comes at the expense of legal citizens, and of course those who came here legally from other countries, those who immigrated here, and we can't forget that. So yeah, that's certainly part of the conversation, and something that not everybody wants to talk about Medicaid. I can tell you after a career in television that it's not always the topic everybody wants to speak about or do a segment on TV, but it's something that's really important and impacting a lot of people.
It's something about the Medicaid debate from the summer, and now we're having the debate over SNAP benefits. It's interesting. I think a lot of people's eyes are now opened to just how broad the welfare state is in the United States. The percentage of our population that's on Medicaid, the 43 million people that are on SNAP, these are massive percentages of the overall U.S. population. In your opinion, do we have too much of a welfare state? Does it need reform? Should we shrink it? How has all this news just hit you as someone who studies these policies on a regular basis?
Yeah, I feel for the people that really need it, Scott. Again, coming from where I grew up, where it's actually one of the poorest counties in New York State, there are a lot of people who struggle, that are hardworking people that love this country, that do need assistance. So I understand that need, but I think there are a lot of people who are taking advantage of the system, and that's something that really needs to stop. We need to take a closer look at that. So I fully support that, and making sure that those people that really need it are getting those benefits so they can get on their feet and live a quality of life that they deserve.
Jen, we got about 30 seconds before we go to our commercial break. It sounds like you might be doing some work focusing on elevating state and local officials who really are sort of innovative leaders in their communities. Is that part of the plan here? You're going to go out and talk to these sort of more dynamic local officials and make sure that they're able to get their voices heard in Washington?
Yeah, we certainly are. When you say that, Scott, I think of names like Governor Abbott down in Texas, Landry in Louisiana, among many others that we don't even have time to mention. But yeah, certainly getting out there, having conversations with them, amplifying that to the people, even down to the very local level, county commissioners, mayors, and so forth, that all have a very important voice in this that we want to bring that back to Washington. So we'll be getting out there with them and having a lot of conversations, and hopefully we'll even maybe see you out on the road at some point as well.
I would love to see you out on the road, and I'm going to ask you to hold over through a commercial break because I want to finish our conversation about this important new project called Defend Forgotten America. It's being run by Jen Pellegrino, who is also affiliated with the America First Policy Institute. I'm going to see the America First guys down in Florida on Friday night. They're having a gala, and I'll be speaking down there and handing out some copies of my book, so maybe I'll run into you at Mar-a-Lago. First, a quick word from our friends at Relief Factor. We get letters. Here's the letter from Travis. He says, before Relief Factor, it took me an hour to walk a mile. Now I'm walking 4 miles an hour. And Travis said, I even ran this morning for the first time in a decade. Good for Travis. That could be you too. Is pain holding you back? Is it keeping you from walking or running? Is it keeping you from bowling? Is it keeping you from playing with your grandkids or walking your dog? If it is, here's my recommendation. Try out Relief Factor. And the best way to try it is to do the 3-week quick start. Go to relieffactor.com. Easy, relieffactor.com. Or call 1-800-4-RELIEF and say, I want the 3-week quick start. I want what Travis got. I want what they're doing in the Jennings household. I think you will not regret this decision. More with Jen Pellegrino when we come back. It's Common Sense for the American people. Scott Jennings here on the Salem Radio Network.
The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network returns from break in 3 minutes. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 2 minutes and 30 seconds. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 2 minutes. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 1 minute and 30 seconds. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return in 1 minute. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 45 seconds. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 30 seconds. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 15 seconds. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 5 seconds.
You want to drive a leftist crazy? Tell the truth and keep smiling. This is the Scott Jennings Show.
Our guest is Jen Pellegrino from America First Policy and running a new project called Defend Forgotten America. We'll come back to Jen in just a moment, but first a quick word from our friends and our partners at Child Help. You know, they run the National Child Abuse Hotline, and boy, do they have stories about kids like 13-year-old Jay, who called up a counselor on this hotline one night and told a harrowing story about the physical and sexual abuse that he was facing. And he was in and out of foster care, in and out of care from his grandparents. He was abused every step of the way. But Child Help, the counselor at Child Help, listened. They validated this kid's feelings. They helped him create a safety plan. Authorities were contacted. Jay was supported. They rescued Jay. And what we're trying to do with Child Help is make you all understand the necessary service of the National Child Abuse Hotline. These kids have nowhere else to turn. There's lots of child abuse out there. It's a scourge. They have nowhere else to turn. They call this hotline and they get help. Your gift of $135 sponsors 5 calls. You get $135. You could save 5 kids just like Jay, like so many others. Here's how you donate: 1-833-302-HELP. That's 1-833-302-4357. $135. If you'd rather text it, text the word Child Help to 94878. So if you want to help out, I would really encourage it. I trust these guys. It's a great charity. The money you spend, vast majority goes right to the service of the National Child Abuse Hotline, and kids like Jay and people like Jay all over the country can get the help and support that they need. Please, I encourage you to help Child Help today. Scott Jennings on the Salem Radio Network talking to Jen Pellegrino with a new project called Defend Forgotten America. Hollywood Sean, let's play the next clip. I want to hear a little bit more from Defend Forgotten America.
Under the Trump administration, the forgotten men and women of our country are going to be forgotten no longer.
Defend Forgotten America exists to make sure that truth is never forgotten again.
President Trump is the friend of the forgotten American.
People of Middletown, Ohio, and all the forgotten communities. I will be a vice president who never forgets where he came from.
Join us at defendforgottenamerica.com and stand with us to defend the future of this great nation.
Jen, if you had 30 seconds with every member of Congress to tell them something on behalf of Forgotten America, what would you tell them? What do they need to know about what people in these communities are thinking and feeling right now?
Thanks, Scott. That's a great question. You know, I would say they need to go back outside of Washington, go back to the communities in their home states, in their district that are forgotten, where people don't feel like their voices are heard. Have a conversation with them, listen. You know, they're really good people, I think, as you know, Scott. I mean, some hardworking people that just love this country, some of the most patriotic people in this country, people that would come up to me at Trump rallies with tears in their eyes and praying that, you know, he would be back in office. Those kinds of people that really want the best for this country, that just want to feel safe, that don't want the government on their backs, that want common sense back in Washington, as we all know so well. That's what they need to do, is go back and listen to them. I think so many people in these communities feel like D.C. has completely forgotten about them. They're not listening. Their representative doesn't spend any time in their area. Just go back and have a conversation, have a cup of coffee with them, go to the local diner. That would go a long way in making those people feel like their voices are heard and being brought back to D.C.
All right, I got like 20 seconds left, but I'm going to ask you a question that I was asked on CNN last night. If you lost your voice and you had to hire a spokesperson to speak on your behalf while you recuperated, who would you hire?
Caroline Levitt, hands down.
Caroline,
she is knocking it out of the park. I adore her. I think back to when I was in the White House back in 2020 as a reporter, and she was working her way up the ranks, and she has not stopped working since. She's just killing it. But Scott, you'd be another great one as well. You're out there speaking for Forgotten American every single night, and we are so grateful for that. We're always cheering you on.
Well, thank you for your nice words, and I agree with you on Caroline. She's doing a great job. I mean, I think the Trump comm shop is just running circles around the president and around the Democrats every day. Now, what I said last night was Sydney Sweeney, because I saw her the other day manhandle that reporter and didn't take any crap off that reporter in that interview, and I thought, this is someone who's stoic, who has message discipline, and who doesn't take any crap off these reporters who are trying to get you to say stupid things. So you take Caroline,
I love that.
Sydney, we'll all hit the road and we'll have an amazing time.
That'll be a good looking team too, Scott. I really like that. You nailed it. Very Trumpian in that regard.
There by miles, I can assure you. All right, Jen, thanks for stopping in.
Hey, quick note, Scott.
Yeah, thank
you. Quick note, if I may. Former America First Policy alum, just FYI. I'm with DFA now, but just want to make that clear.
Very, very
thanks.
Good. Jen, thanks. Everybody, thanks for listening. Back tomorrow with Scott on Salem. See you tomorrow.
When you're running down our country, man, you're walking on the fighting side of me.